you know, since the other day when Microsoft came out and started talking a little bit about the AMD deal and what they plan on doing, which I did a video about that, and like I said in that video, I feel like Microsoft said a lot without saying anything really. So they realistically have everybody asking the same questions that they were already asking previously, which is strange if you think about it, because a lot of people are like, oh, is it going to be more of a PC? Is it going to be more of this? Is it going to be more of that? You know, is it backwards compatibility? Or, you know, we didn't really get any answers, because they're like, yeah, we're going to have a PC, handheld, a console, cloud stuff. So it's like they really are kind of just, you know, but what are the specific talks that they were talking about had to do with the console itself. Like, people are still kind of confused on that. The interesting thing is, and I've talked about this before, there's a lot of different things, especially in regards to like the price point, right? It's like, I know like when you are on X or Twitter or whatever, it's very much an echo chamber, and it doesn't represent the entirety of the gaming community, because, you know, look at the Switch 2. Everybody's like, I'm not going to buy that, and then it sells like 5 million units in, you know, the first week or two or whatever. So, you know, again, if you went by Twitter, it wasn't going to do anything. It was going to be a complete flop. So if you go by Twitter with this new Xbox thing, everybody is suddenly a PC fan and a Steam fan. So I don't know, but I want to get into this. What's up? I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. I do daily gaming content, so if you didn't know, please check it out. Like the video is pretty much all I ask. That's really all you need to know. You know, I do try to be fun yet informative, and if that is something you're interested in, then guess what? Hey, you found a home, and hopefully you enjoy the content. Now, this is interesting because according to this, if Xbox is using like other storefronts and things like that, the Xbox is expected to cost at least $1,000, according to someone who has leaked specs and things like that in the past. Based on insights from a leaker named Kepler, Microsoft may plan to sell the console at a profit, moving away from the traditional loss per unit model. The rise in hardware costs in multiple storefronts like Steam may contribute to the higher prices. Recent price hikes, including the Xbox Series X, which is $600 by itself, suggest a more expensive next-gen console. So here's the thing. If in year 5 the Xbox Series X is $600, what do you think something's going to be? You know, because listen, Microsoft is still losing money on this thing, right? But they make it up in people paying to play online, people paying for Game Pass, people buying games, people buying microtransactions and things like that. But if you don't have any of those ways to make that money up, you have to sell your console at a profit or near cost, which would be rather expensive. So Microsoft recently unveiled that the new Xbox specs will be powered by AMD as part of a new multi-year partnership. However, even though it's unclear how much the next-gen Xbox will cost, that hasn't stopped one prominent leaker from making a very sobering prediction. Kepler, who recently shared the ported PSP2 specs, believes that Microsoft's new Xbox will cost at least $1,000 and possibly more than that. In a post on X, he said, multiple storefronts equals console has to be sold at a profit. Get ready for the first $1,000 console, boys. So again, Kepler's prediction is based on Microsoft not selling its next hardware at a loss, which was historically the case. Software and subscriptions are where the vast majority of revenue comes from Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, which usually offset the loss on each console sold. However, Nintendo sold the Switch for a profit, and Microsoft, which has continued to see hardware sales decline, may want to ensure that each Xbox sold adds something to the bottom line, especially if they're not getting that money. Like, think about this for a second. Think about this game, Fortnite, right? Always like a top popular game on Xbox. Microsoft earns something like $1 billion, maybe more, every year off of Fortnite microtransactions. They get 30%. Every time somebody buys skins or anything on that game, Microsoft gets 30% of that, and that rakes up to be billions of dollars. Now, imagine people can play these games on Steam or someplace else. Microsoft gets none of that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how that could completely like tank everybody's expectations. It's like with this Xbox ROG Ally thing or whatever. That thing's going to be the more expensive one, probably $800, $900, maybe more. And people are like, it's going to do so well. It's going to do so well. It's like, well, that thing already exists, and it's like $700, $800. it just doesn't have the Xbox button. You know what I mean? It's not going to play Xbox console games. Who's going to go out and buy this thing, right? The regular Asus ROG has sold 500,000 units lifetime, so it's crazy to think that people actually believe that these things are going to sell like incredibly well or something. You know, I don't see that happening. And you know, it could be a situation where you know, people kind of look at things a little bit differently when you look at the reality of this. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's especially true if the new Xbox offers multiple storefronts, as Kepler points out that Microsoft won't be able to take as big of a cut from software sales as Valve's Steam platform, which is heavily rumored to come to the next Xbox, takes 30% of each sale. Microsoft's recent price hikes also indicate that the new Xbox will be more expensive than its predecessor. The Series X now costs $599 instead of $499, and Sony recently launched the PS5 Pro for only $100 more at $699. So there is that. The Asus ROG Xbox Ally X, that's a mouthful, is largely expected to cost $899, the same as the Asus ROG Ally X, which means a $1,000 Xbox console wouldn't be beyond the possibility or realm of possibility. So yeah, that's something to kind of look into as well. Even the Nintendo Switch 2 is the most expensive console Nintendo's ever made at $449. It seems like the trend of hardware and electronics becoming more expensive isn't ending anytime soon. Whether Microsoft could persuade people to buy a $1,000 Xbox is another story. You know, again, I don't think that they could. I think you might have some real hardcore enthusiasts that maybe jump on that or something, but at the end of the day, like, that is a very, very tough task to ask people for. And you know, just out there going, oh hey, you know what, buy our console for $1,000 or even $800, like, what would be the point of that, when I truly believe that Sony's going to stick to more traditional pricing. They might have a $5 or $5.99 console, but you know, that console is going to probably be sold at a loss at first, and then you have a situation where you know, Sony's going to be able to kind of rake in those other people. You know, let's just be real. I just think that, and again, this could be off or not. Like, Microsoft might just do another traditional console. It's hard telling because they don't necessarily spell things out for people. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're like, oh, we want to be everywhere, we want to be this, we want to be that, you know, but at the same point in time, they aren't exactly doing a good amount of really convincing anybody or being honest. It's just like they're politicians almost in the way that they talk. Oh hey, you know, I really love you know, this and this, and so we're going to continue to do this. But at the same point in time, you know, when they brought that Ant Online streaming service to Game Pass, they're like, this is really showcasing our ability to, you know, have game preservation and our ability to do backwards compatibility. Well, you know, game preservation and backwards compatibility are completely different than streaming games. You know, that's the thing that, you know, I always try to point out. It's like, you know, streaming isn't really those things. You know, that's what I'm kind of waiting to see. You know what I'm saying? It's like people really don't look at that. I don't see how anyone could look at it as, hey, I get to stream a game, that's my backwards compatibility or whatever. You know, I didn't pay all this money for these games only to be able to stream them. You know, I think that would be a pretty crappy deal altogether, and I hope that realistically that's not the case, because I want to see Microsoft be able to go out there and compete with an actual console. And you know, for them to do that, I think they're going to have to do much better than what's kind of going on right now. So, you know, hopefully we get an idea of what's going to change in the future, and it's going to be, you know, just a regular console that's going to play our games via hardware. Because I've said this numerous times before, they talk a big game about backwards compatibility, but here's the rub: like, it's illegal to software emulate and sell those games. So that's the thing, right? So you could do software emulation if you weren't going to sell those games in your store, but how would people buy them then, unless they already owned them or whatever? So that'd be tough. The other thing is you can hardware backwards compatibility, and you don't need any kind of licenses or any kind of agreements or whatever. You could just do that, right? So that's the big difference there. That's why the backwards compatibility program ended. A lot of those studios and publishers are no longer around, so you can't get the licenses and things like that. So that's going to be how that kind of works out, in my opinion. You know, I don't see Microsoft doing that. So I'm going to look and see what Microsoft actually announces and what they do in the future with, you know, great interest, and we'll see how that turns out. I'm willing to kind of go into it with an open mind depending on what happens, and we'll just see how that kind of works out. You know, it could be interesting, it could be something that sells me on the next Xbox, or, you know, maybe it don't. You know, I think it depends. So hopefully we'll see what's up, and I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about it in the comments, so let me know what you think. I definitely appreciate it. If you guys enjoy the content, please like the video, share it out, subscribe as well. Thank you all so much. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.